My next guest is Becky Cholewka, and she's the owner of Cholewka Law. Becky, you got to tell everybody a little bit about how you got to be an attorney.
Sure. So it really starts way back when in junior high school, actually. I found out about Abraham Lincoln, and I was impressed with him. He was a lawyer, self-taught, and he just really wanted to help people in his neighborhood and advocate for people. And for some reason in junior high, that really stuck with me, and it's a lifelong process to get there. I'm a second career girl. Took a while to get that law degree, but I have absolutely loved helping others.
Sure. Now, I think you have a story. I know. Well, we're going to talk because you tell everybody the kind of attorney you are.
So I mainly do estate planning. So I help people with wills and trusts and powers of attorney, and really helping families stay out of court in emergency situations, having them be prepared for a time of crisis or when a death happens in a family. So that's what I focus on.
And listen up, everybody, because I have to say, I too have been through something, so I know you too have. Why don't you tell about what happened to you?
Yeah, so lots of stuff, but I'll start with my dad. So my dad actually died unexpectedly when I was 19 years old. I was in college, and not a phone call you're expecting to hear, right? At 19, it was a heart attack, and it was 4 days after his 47th birthday. So I've kind of seen this from a lot of different angles from a very young age, and was very thankful of how my dad planned and protected my sister and I. And really just wanted to be able to help other moms and dads be able to do that for their families as well. It was a very hard time, obviously, to go through, and you've had some of those own experiences with emergencies.
I think everyone, they don't think about it until someone passes away, and then all of a sudden, because you think, oh, they would never do something like that to me. Well, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, and I get in my office all the time, oh, I'm not going to die yet. It's, I have at least another 20 years. And I'm always like, my dad died 4 days after his 47th birthday. I'm pretty sure that he probably felt the same way and thought that he was going to live forever and live a long life, and we just never know.
Well, two things. One, I have to say, dying unexpectedly. I had a brother that out of the blue died, and I felt sorry for his children.
Right.
But more so, and we'll talk about you though too, is I want people to understand the importance of this too. You think you might have everything done, and you might even think you have it done correctly.
Yes.
But you don't. And that is what happened to me. I know my dad did everything he could to make sure that we were all taken care of and fair and all of that. Well, that one little thing that he didn't do, that he just thought that, my brothers and him had a gentleman agreement or whatever, and people way back then, that's how they believed. Well, now my father, if he only knew, would be rolling over in his grave. So what I say is, for everybody, I implore all of you out there, listen to what she has to say. Don't put your head in the sand. It's really important. So let's talk about estate planning and why it's, obviously we know why it's so important, but what you would suggest, what is the first thing that you would say that people always forget to do?
Well, people, I think just what you said, they think that they've done everything. Maybe they read something on the internet, or their family told them that, oh, you just need to do this. And a lot of times it's just they don't know what they don't know. So really being proactive and going and seeing an attorney who handles this type of practice area, that's really your only defense, because online documents or document preparers, you get a document in place and you think you're protected. And then you realize when you need to go and use that document, you're not. It's because it's not just a piece of paper. It's making sure that that solution actually is going to work for you.
Exactly. There are documents, and then there's documents that work.
Exactly. Right? That's one of our taglines, actually. Documents that work.
I come up with them all the time.
Thank you, Carol.
But really also, too, you made a big point, too, is by when you said a lot of people go online. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
I understand where people are hoping and trying to do what's best for their family, and again, they just don't realize what they don't know. There's a judge actually who calls those online type documents penny wise, pound foolish, because we usually end up in court some way, somehow, trying to fix things on the back end just because they're not done properly on the front end, or it's not the entire solution that we needed to craft. It's a piece of it, and we've forgotten a part.
So, okay. Let's talk about maybe something like, obviously, how in a story that you might want to tell them where it helps them.
Sure.
A good story.
A good story. Well, I have lots of stories. My mom, actually, I've used every single one of these documents in my own family. So it's not just I know the legal sense, but also how does it actually work in real life? My mom is had 2 major heart attacks in her life. She's still with us. She's a trooper. But we actually had one of those while we were on a family vacation in Colorado with her. And so not only are you now dealing with a family crisis and emergency, you are not even at your home, which adds a whole different complexity. But one of the things I have people tell me all the time is, oh, I have this great binder of documents and we've done our plan. And I'm always like, great, did you give copies to people who were going to act for you in an emergency? Because I luckily had access to my mom's documents while we were in Colorado. It wasn't just stuck in her binder in her apartment. I had digital copies I could present to the hospital, which we needed to use. And I hear from people all of the time how, oh, well, I never gave anybody to, oh, they don't know where it's located in my house, or things aren't going to work if people don't know they even exist. So big tip, if you have a plan out there, at least make sure your family knows where it is and has copies.
Well, that's right. I mean, not only that, if you have a plan, I have a plan, but it's certainly not even done. You know, because a lot of people, you start something and life goes on and life changes too.
Yes.
So it's really important that you update those. Do you do that a lot in your office?
We do a lot of that in our office. And I always like to tell people there's something they need to do and there's something that I need to do. So
and what's that?
I need to worry, of course, about all the legal changes, because this is state law, federal law, tax law, that changes all the time, and we need to stay up to date on all the laws to see what we need to change in our plans to make sure that they continue to work. And for families, I encourage them to take their estate plan out once a year, dust off the cover, because it's usually all dusty, and open it, there's a novel idea, and just take a look at it and see who have they named to be their backup decision makers, and is that still who they want, or is that person still in their life? Maybe, you know, their sister-in-law was their healthcare power of attorney and she has dementia and she can no longer act for them. So we always need to update because your life will change too.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, they always want to update when they say you're out of the will. Then they go exactly where it is and they get it all taken care of, right? But they don't seem to... they procrastinate on something like this, and I don't understand. I know when I listen, and I talk to a lot of different people all the time, the importance of it is so big.
Yes.
So why an attorney?
Well, again, we specialize in this area in the sense of we know what this is. This isn't just a piece of paper, like we said before. We understand how not only the laws work, but how it also is working in practical life. Just because you have a financial power of attorney in place, for example, doesn't mean somebody needs to accept it. There's no law that says a bank needs to accept a power of attorney. And people don't understand that. And Chase Bank, for example, won't accept one that's more than 6 months old. So it's our way of helping explain and tell people what all of this stuff means in real life and practical life so that they can understand how it's going to affect them and their own family with their own situations.
Well, really, it's not the person that passes away. It's everybody else that's left.
Yes.
And it's really sad because I know people really mean well and they want to do the right thing, but it seems like everyone I know, and I've obviously in that age group where now all that kind of things are happening with people that I know, almost everyone I know has had an issue, and it's been very hurtful. And the person that gets hurt, it's terrible. Talk about probate and things like that can happen.
So probate is when we have to go to court when someone dies to have the court oversee distribution of their assets. And in Arizona, about $3,000 to $5,000 would be what I would call the cost for a simple probate, on average about 9 months to a year, but every state is different. So it's a lot of time and expense on the back end if we have to go through that process. And it's also at a time where someone just lost a loved one. So they're also dealing with their own loss and hurt and pain with having mom or dad die or whomever it is. And now they're having to work with attorneys and tax people, and it's very emotionally overwhelming at that time too.
So when is the right time to call you?
Anytime.
Anytime.
Everyone over 18 should have a plan in place.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, there's people that are getting married, you're going to have children, a family, there's all different ways, and you can update it as you go along.
Yes.
Right?
All of these documents you can amend so long as you have the mental capacity to do so.
And you just brought up another good point, because I know there's a lot of people that go into they end up in the hospital and or in a coma or something happens really bad. You have any examples that you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, so we have actually lots. This happens more times than you would think. We would have a family member call and say, hey, mom's in the hospital, we need to get a power of attorney. And we start asking questions, well, are they now on pain medications? What's their mental capacity? And do they have Alzheimer's, dementia? How far is it? And many times I have to tell them, I'm sorry, there's no capacity there for them actually to even create a document. You're going to have to go to court now.
Especially with the rules now. Everything has changed. They made it a lot harder. I mean, my God, you can't even talk to a doctor for a family member because if you're not on the list, you're not getting in.
No, my mother-in-law actually found that out the hard way because my father-in-law was in the hospital. She didn't have a HIPAA release form getting access to his information, and she had to make decisions for him at a time where doctors couldn't tell her what was going on.
It's awful. Can you tell everybody, do you do free consultations? How does it work when when they come to you?
So when you come to us, we have a phone call. We get some general information for you to maximize your time with an attorney as you come into the office. We do not offer free consultations because we are actually giving you legal advice as you come in and meet with us.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to tell you, figure out a plan, what's best for you and your family, give you then a price to move forward if you'd like to move forward with our office at that point.
But it's very important that people do this. I mean, and don't put it off because we've seen it time and time and time again. Some people think when they're estate planning that you have to have a big estate. You know, you have to have a home or you have to have things, and I've heard people say that. Even I remember, I think I heard my ex once said, I don't really have that much, but you know what? It's important because it doesn't matter what you have, right?
Correct. Most people, that's one of our biggest mistakes actually that we see. It doesn't matter how much you have. You actually are alive and well right now, and if something should happen to you, we need documents in place to have somebody come in and help be your decision maker. So whether it has, sometimes some of these documents have nothing to do with your assets when you die, most of them actually have to do with you right now and how can we assist you while you're alive.
Well, tell again what they would say when they call you. Do they have to have papers together? What is it that they need when they come? Because, this is a very important first consultation with you.
Yes. So a lot of people are very intimidated by coming in and talking to attorneys. So we try to make it as easy as possible. So that's why we do a conversation over the phone to collect information that we need. If you have a plan in place, bring that in so we can review it. But other than that, I just need people. I need to have a conversation and we're just going to talk things out.
And two, I think you're right when you say people don't know what they don't know, okay? But I also think, too, that people don't know how they make it so hard with this topic because nobody wants to talk about it. And if they do, let's say you have money and your children are talking to you. My father didn't have a ton of money or anything like that, but he never made this an easy topic, so we never talked about it. And I think that happens a lot in families.
It does. There are some families that we really will coach. Sometimes we'll have families come into my office actually, and I'll talk them through it because it's so difficult to have a conversation at their own dinner table. And sometimes it's counseling families about how do you say things to your children, or sometimes it's how do you start having this conversation with your parents if your parents don't want to talk about. So a lot of what we do is counseling and advice just for our individual families.
I think people should go in and just have advice just on that, and a whole family get together, because usually at the end, unfortunately, if you don't, someone gets hurt.
Yes.
And I don't think that's what the people who die, that's not what they want.
Right, absolutely. It's never the intent to have this go sideways. But if you don't plan properly and take steps on the front end, that's usually what we see happen on the back end.
Sure. What would be some of your final words for everybody out there that you would want them to know about your office and you?
Well, you know what? I think one of the reasons why we're successful at Cholewka Law is we have people not only that love what we do, but we've been through a lot of these own experiences. So we can really relate to people about emergency situations and sudden deaths. And when you're able to talk to somebody who's walked those shoes, it gives you a little bit more comfort to realize, okay, they know what they're doing. They're here to help. They want us to be able to not have to have those same situations.
When they call, do they talk to you, or who do they get? Well, sometimes people want to know that. They're watching you now.
Right now, actually, we talked to Peg in our office, who's wonderful.
I've met her before.
You met her before.
She's a doll.
She's lovely. She's going to be retiring at the end of the year. So
call now.
But she's great. We absolutely love Peg.
Yeah.
So.
But at at least they go through her, and then they can find out more information if they need to through you.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's so true about that, what you said, especially that people don't know what they don't know. And I'm going to say this to everybody out there. I know if it happened to me, it could happen to anybody. And the most important thing that I want people to realize is that you shouldn't put your head in the sand, right? And give them a call and find out what it is that they can do for you to make sure that really things are taken care of. You don't know what you don't know. And here's the big thing, everybody, is there are documents that work, and then there's documents that don't work. And that's why it's a really good idea. Don't go online, give them a call, and they'll talk to you and tell you exactly how they can help you so you can have some peace of mind.